Behind every missing person case lies a story, one that's unique, sinister, or shrouded in mystery. From complex dealings, secretive pasts, or unexplained events, these individuals became the unsuspecting victims of the phenomenon of the missing. Number 10. Though she had a rough start to adulthood, Jennifer Louise Bell was turning her life around, with her 3 children being the main influence. Other than her ambitious past, Jennifer was an ordinary Nashville, Tennessee resident who was making the most out of life. Come July 2023, though, life for the Bell family as they knew it would be changed forever. Jennifer had vanished into oblivion, leaving daunting questions in her wake. So few clues were left behind that her very existence could be called into question, the only evidence being the missing person posters and the memories that remained. It was sometime in July 2023 when Jennifer waited at the Shell gas station located at 3863 Dickerson Pike. Her mother was meeting her there to give her money for gas. The vehicle she was driving, a black SUV, belonged to her on and off again boyfriend, Jacob McCord. Following that meeting, Jennifer would inexplicably vanish along with the vehicle, leaving no traces as to her whereabouts. Initially, the family wasn't too concerned due to Jennifer's history and lifestyle, suggesting that she had a past filled with vanishings. It wasn't until the Bell family received an unnerving phone call from McCord that they realized that something was wrong. It was nearing the end of July when he called the family, claiming that the pair had been in Lee County, Alabama, when he awoke that morning to find his phone, wallet, SUV, and Jennifer missing. He alleged that the woman had stolen these items and disappeared with them. The vehicle would be found not long after that in the 8000 block of Lee Road 179 in a rural area of the county. The sight of the SUV was unnerving. The passenger window had been smashed out, and the mirror on the driver's side was missing. Brief investigations were made into the disappearance by the family, but it wouldn't be until the 2nd of February, 2024, that Jennifer was officially reported missing to the Nashville Police Department. It was only then that a proper investigation was conducted into her mysterious disappearance, and the details that would come to light were nothing short of suspicious. Jennifer's cousin, Carla Sullivan, was the first to come through with information. She claimed that sometime in July of 2023, the two had driven off to meet with McCord, where Jennifer would be dropped off. A few days prior, the couple got into a fight, leading the woman to stay with her cousin for a few days. At some point, they seemingly made up and reconnected. Carla claims that Jennifer climbed into McCord's SUV and drove away. Just days later, that same vehicle was found abandoned. Carla wasn't the only one who came through with suspicious information. Once an investigation was opened, witnesses would come forward and report that they had seen McCord camping near Mill Creek alone. The witness alleged that he was seen washing his clothing in the creek later. Jennifer and the vehicle were nowhere to be seen, even though he'd stated earlier that the two of them had been in Lee County that month. McCord was subsequently named as a person of interest in the disappearance. In April of 2024, he was arrested on unrelated charges, allegedly having been found in a stolen truck after running away from Nashville police. According to the department, he's not been cooperative when it comes to the case of his missing girlfriend, who, as of 2025, still hasn't been located. Information can be directed to the Nashville Crime Stoppers at 615-742-7463. Number 9. Encompassing the entirety of Alaska is a persistent mystery that, without fail, prompts more questions each year. 2,250. That's how many people disappear in this state annually, twice the national average. Native Alaskans experience a disproportionately high number of missing people, resulting in the establishment of necessary organizations that are dedicated to fighting against this disturbing system. Despite thoroughly reporting on the missing people of Alaska, many of the cases still remain unsolved. One of those 2,250 was Mary Dawn Wilson, a resident of Alaska, whose disappearance is marked by something sinister and mysterious. It was the 2nd of July, 2022, when Mary departed from a Healy residence where she'd been staying with friends, never to be seen or heard from again. Several days would go by with seemingly no one raising the alarm that something was wrong. Then, on the 14th of July, the 69-year-old was finally reported missing. The report came when Mary's Ford Focus was discovered abandoned on the Stampede Trail, a secluded road located within the Denali borough. The investigation that subsequently ensued described a rather peculiar and unnerving backstory. At 1:30 a.m. that day, the vehicle was found stuck 6.8 miles down the road. Inside the locked vehicle was a young girl, the daughter of a close friend, who Mary agreed to watch for a few days since she was working in a rural Alaskan mine. Troopers estimated that she'd been locked in there alone for at least 2 days. Aside from being confused and hungry, she was in good health. 7.8 miles down the same road, not far from the vehicle, various items belonging to Mary were strewn about, but there was no sign of her anywhere. Troopers believed that the vehicle became stranded, leading Mary to lock the child in the car and search for help. But as she did so, something happened that would prevent her from returning, and no one knows what that was. Information on this missing person case can be directed to the Alaska State Troopers at 907-269-5511. Number 8. Traveling to other countries or continents always comes with its risks and dangers. Traveling alone to these places presents even more hazards. But these warnings weren't enough to dissuade Carla Valpios, who enjoyed visiting remote places, unafraid of traveling alone. The 35-year-old, though, faced one extra challenge. She was blind. Still, this didn't stop the seasoned adventurer from embarking on these trips, or teaching people that visually impaired individuals are still absolutely capable. Carla's family was supportive and proud of her decision to visit the world. Yet her father, Carlos, was understandably nervous, but kept his fears quiet, not expecting them to one day come true. In December of 2018, Carla, a Texas Tech graduate, traveled to Peru for a wedding. While there, she opted to visit the archaeological park in Pisac, where she tried to tour Machu Picchu. But due to her condition, officials denied her entry. A tour group standing nearby overheard the ordeal and offered to help her explore the site. Carla grouped with them, and everything went well. They explored the site with no issues, and later went dancing at a local club. The tour group resided at the Parawana Hostel, to where they returned at 4 a.m. on the 12th of December. But then, Carla inexplicably disappeared. Once word had gotten around that she was nowhere to be found, the Valpios family quickly got involved. According to the now missing woman's brother, the sequence of events that unfolded that morning was undoubtedly strange. According to a member of the tour group, she awoke at 9:30 a.m. and noticed that Carla and her belongings were gone. After checking her cell phone, she discovered a text. The message was from Carla, and it came a few hours earlier, stating that she was going to head out and explore the city. It seemed that this was exactly what she was going to go do. The new friend headed down to the reception area, inquiring about the missing traveler. Security officers and receptionists all claimed to have seen Carla get into a taxi. Family notified local police of the strange details and disappearance, leading them to quickly locate this taxi driver. The driver claimed that he dropped Carla off at the Cusco bus terminal, stating that she wanted to explore further into the city. The last bit of information that family and friends received came from the man working at the Machu Picchu entrance. It was said that he had seen her there and that she was looking well, but whatever happened after that last sighting remains unknown. As news spread, a family friend, Garcia Steele, pointed out an alarming text that she received just before the vanishing. After not hearing from her for quite some time, the friend messaged Carla persistently. A harrowing 12 hours later, following texts of "Is everything okay?" and "Are you there?" Carla finally responded. She apologized for the delay in her response and blamed it on a lack of Wi-Fi. Then she said something strange. "I had a big issue that I need to resolve, which I'll do before I get home." This was the last time Garcia would hear from her. Carlos and his son traveled to Peru shortly after the vanishing, having received no updates from the police. They scoured the area in search of her, but found no evidence or clues that would lead to her whereabouts. Carla's fate remains unknown. In 2019, though, detectives investigating the disappearance expressed that they don't think she ever made it to Machu Picchu that day, despite the park employees' claim. They suggested the possibility that she was victimized by a criminal group. The last text message, though, tells a different, sinister story. Number 7. A significant amount of the 2,250 disappearances recorded annually in Alaska have been attributed to a bizarre section of the state known as the Alaskan Triangle. It's within this strange area that more than 20,000 people have vanished since the 1970s. The region gained more attention in 1972 when a plane carrying 2 politicians from the United States inexplicably vanished. Ever since, more and more unusual disappearances have plagued the area, allowing it to become a source of intrigue steeped in mystery. Ultimately, the Alaskan Triangle became comparable to the Bermuda Triangle. It would be this very legend that would serve as the backstory for a modern disappearance that occurred in the same suspicious area, only adding to the thousands of stories associated with it. The disappearance was that of Alan Foster, a trained pilot who had years of flying experience. The 47-year-old, a seasoned aviator and mechanic, had traveled all over Alaska, never encountering anything that he couldn't get out of. But it seemed his luck was up. It was 2013 when Alan had recently purchased his Piper PA-32 Cherokee and embarked on a lengthy 4,000-mile journey, starting in Atlanta and destined to end in Anchorage, which he called home. It was the 9th of September that year when he landed in the southeast village called Yakutat, preparing for his final flight back home, which was just 360 miles away. After refueling at his stop, he departed Yakutat and made contact with the Juneau Flight Services. Juneau is one of the points marking the border of the Alaskan Triangle. Alan asked for an update on the weather conditions and stated that if necessary, he'd be stopping in Cordova, another town just 200 miles away. Just 18 minutes later, the Cherokee suddenly dropped off the radar, placing the aircraft between the Gulf of Alaska and the Malaspina Glacier. The radar revealed a transponder target near 1,100 feet, and if that was Alan's plane, it would be the last record of it before he and the craft mysteriously vanished. Days went by as rescue teams searched for the Cherokee. Signs of a wreckage, a smoke signal, or anything. It wasn't until 5 harrowing days later that searchers picked up on a strange signal. It was small, almost soundless, a tantalizing ping. It came from the 7,000-foot peak of Mount Eberle, located at the edge of the ice fields of the Wrangell St. Elias National Park and Preserve. The signal then disappeared. Then moments later, another ping. That was the last time that anyone would hear the disembodied signal. The search continued in the days to follow, expanding from Whittier to western Prince William Sound. 6 Civil Air Patrol planes would travel out of Cordova, and an Alaskan Air National Guard Rescue C-130 would scour the higher terrain. The United States Coast Guard would search the lower plains, hoping to find something. Almost a week into the search, a pilot who'd been flying in the opposite direction that fateful day had spotted Alan. The two had radioed to one another, with the pilot warning him of the bad weather ahead. Their conversation ended with Alan saying he was going to hug the beach. This marked the last time that anyone would hear from him. The search subsequently expanded further to include the Copper River, believing it to be the area that Alan may have flown into to avoid the poor conditions ahead. Nothing turned up here either, though, leaving the experienced aviator missing in Alaska. The disappearance of Alan Foster and the Piper PA-32 Cherokee have become just another story in the legend of the Alaskan Triangle. Number 6. The 29th of July, 2023, was a day marked by the indelible feeling that something was wrong. It would be that day that police would arrive in Winslow Township, New Jersey, in response to a concerned neighbor who asked for a welfare check to be conducted. The neighbor of Norma Yates seemingly became anxious when she hadn't heard from her or seen her that day. Police would ultimately find Norma in a building not far from where she lived. She was charging her phone there. She told the officers that everything was fine, and they gave her a bottle of water. The 62-year-old then headed home. Everything seemed to have gone back to normal, but little did anyone know this was just one strange feature in an enduring mystery that was yet to come. At around 5 p.m. that same day, Norma was spotted on Vineyard Yard, located in the Atco section of Winslow. She was seen near her trailer home, which was parked there. The detail made it clear that Norma had indeed returned home following the welfare check conducted on her. The woman's whereabouts after this sighting, though, are shrouded in obscurity. She had vanished. Concerns were raised the following morning when she failed to show up for coffee with a friend. The day after that, on the 31st of July, Norma was reported missing to the Winslow Township Police Department. Once the family had gotten word of the strange disappearance, they were immediately alarmed. It wasn't like her to not contact family or to not say that she planned on leaving, especially since she was busy looking after her young grandchildren while their father was undergoing cancer treatments. Her relatives would subsequently go to the home, where they found the place in a state of disarray. The condition of the home was also uncharacteristic, leading to speculations of something sinister. Police discovered that Norma's debit card, pocketbook, identification, phone, and shoes had all been left behind. She didn't own a vehicle and showed no indication that she was planning on going somewhere. Investigators began scouring nearby surveillance cameras, but none of them spotted Norma or had any clues that would suggest where she ended up. After learning that she was known to frequent West Atco, police searched there too, but came up empty-handed. The case would go cold after this, with search efforts being suspended and investigators only following up on tips they received. The next tip as to Norma's whereabouts wouldn't come until 2 years later, in July this year. Detectives announced they were pursuing a new sudden lead that would allegedly place Norma in Atlantic City on the day that she vanished. No further updates have since been released, and the whereabouts of the missing woman remain unknown. Information regarding this missing person can be directed to the Winslow Township Police Department at 609-567-0600. Number 5. Dominating the news platforms of South Carolina is the name Susan Rhodes, whose bizarre disappearance has left many perplexed and searching for answers. It was the 11th of June, earlier this year, when she was last spotted on Gregory Lake Road, heading straight for the nearby wooded area. Subsequently, she would vanish between the trees and hasn't been seen or heard from since. The backstory and Susan's reaction to it are certainly strange, and it all began earlier that day. According to neighbors, the 66-year-old's mental health had been on decline for some time, following the passing of her husband. On top of that, it appeared she was suffering from physical health issues too. On the day of the disappearance, Susan had complained to her roommate about her blood pressure and said something alarming. She was experiencing stroke-like symptoms. Later that afternoon, she'd hopped in her car and headed to Gregory Lake Road. Seemingly as a result of the medical condition she was experiencing, Susan collided with another vehicle, and witnesses claimed that the car was moving erratically. The impact of the collision sent the vehicle into a nearby ditch. Susan got out of her car, disoriented, and according to a witness at the scene, she appeared to be having some sort of medical issue. The next thing the woman would do was most unexpected. She turned around and darted for the woods at 2224 Gregory Lake Road, close to the Gregory Landing subdivision entrance. She was last seen at 1:48 that afternoon, running toward the trees. When her roommate got word of the bizarre incident, she and deputies attempted to phone her. Amazingly, they were able to get through to Susan, who indicated she was having a medical episode. The deputy urged her to call 911 so that they could ping the phone and narrow down her location. But again, Susan's response to that was out of character. She abruptly hung up. At 4 p.m., the desperate search for the missing woman commences. Local authorities partnered up with canine units, helicopters, and drones, which led them to a creek. Here, footprints embedded in the earth were found to belong to Susan, which wasn't a good sign given the proximity to the water. But later, surveillance cameras captured the missing woman walking through someone's yard after the crash. This area would subsequently become a focus point for searches. But despite the intense and urgent investigations, Susan remains missing. No further clues surfaced that could indicate where she may have gone. What makes the case even more perplexing is that the missing person was wearing a bright red shirt, which should have allowed her to be easily spotted. She was wearing tan shorts, black shoes, and a hat, and her right arm was in a sling. Susan was unmistakable, yet no one has seen her since. Information regarding this missing individual can be directed to the NADPS dispatch at 803-441-4200. Number 4. Over in North Carolina, another name was dominating the headlines. It was Nancy Bunley from Lexington, who vanished into oblivion, leaving behind a young daughter and a worried family who suspected the worst. It was the 22nd of September, 2024, when 31-year-old Nancy headed to her family's home to drop off some coffee and tea. She then headed to her boyfriend Ricky Lom's residence, located near Finch Bark by Abbott's Creek Bridge. Nancy was last seen leaving this house, never to be heard from again. When she failed to make contact with the family the very next day, they knew something was wrong and promptly reported her missing to the Lexington Police Department. The family said that leaving unexpectedly without warning was not characteristic of Nancy. She also would have never left her child behind. Something was clearly wrong. When police began to investigate the case, they uncovered a suspicious backstory. On the evening that Nancy left Lom's home, she'd done so out of frustration. Earlier, the pair had an argument that sent the woman departing in a black Honda Pilot with a North Carolina plate number RBA 2896. The vehicle is said to belong to Lom. The initial investigation would also uncover something unnerving. Lom had a prior conviction for first-degree assault in Connecticut, which came in 2003. Nancy's phone would later be discovered near Abbott's Creek, allowing it to become the focal point of the searches. Despite the efforts, though, no clues as to her whereabouts ever surfaced. The black Honda has also never been located, and despite the extensive ground and water searches that have been carried out, Nancy's case would become even more unnerving the following January, when Lom was arrested, though the arrest was unrelated to the disappearance, having been illegally in possession of a firearm. Then, that same month, 3 of his relatives, a brother, a sister, and a nephew, were placed in cuffs and facing charges of obstructing an investigation, this time being directly related to Nancy's case. Ven Lom was indicted on 3 counts of obstruction of justice, Vientiane Lom on 5 counts, and Jonathan Lom on 2 counts. They were allegedly not only uncooperative in the investigation, but also presented some obstructions to it. Despite the arrest, no evidence has come forward to suggest that either of the Loms has been directly involved in Nancy's case, who remains missing, along with the vehicle that she was last seen in. Her case is still under investigation. Information about this missing person can be directed to the Lexington Police Department at 336-243-3302. Number 3. The Alaskan Triangle, where thousands go missing every year. Several theories have attempted to explain the cause behind these mysteries, suggesting natural conditions such as the harsh terrain of Alaska and its extreme weather conditions, while other theories paint a more supernatural and eerie picture involving alternate dimensions, aliens, and supernatural creatures. Whatever the cause is, this area has become a point of intrigue as the victims continue to rack up. Finding himself as one such victim of the wrath of the phenomenon was Frank Manano, a traditional educator and mentor on subsistence living, culture, and hunting. On the 17th of August, 2020, he would be reported missing, with very little information as to how, why, or when. When police began investigating the strange case, knowing that it may be futile given the reputation of the area, they discovered that on the day that he vanished, Frank had taken shelter in a cabin located near Nanana. It was the day that he was on his way back from Fairbanks, only to allegedly make a quick stop for firewood. According to witnesses, it appeared that Frank was searching for firewood somewhere between Esther and Nanana, when the forces of the Alaskan Triangle came into play. When authorities searched the area, they found something unnerving. It was Frank's vehicle, abandoned, with no signs of the missing 69-year-old anywhere. The car was found on Standard Creek Road, close to Old Nanana Highway. The area quickly became the focal point for searches, which were extensive and thorough. Investigators were led 2.5 miles down the road to that cabin that Frank is believed to have sought shelter in. The cabin was broken into, and a fire had been started inside. It was here that the keys to his car were also found. No other clues as to his whereabouts would surface after that. Strangely, police believe that members of the public may be holding on to some critical information that could help solve the case and bring closure, but no one has ever come forward. Frank seemingly disappeared into thin air after having reached the shelter. Something had sent him away from his vehicle, and he was in desperate need of a hideout, desperate enough for him to break into the cabin. The keys seemed to confirm that Frank had made it there, but the lack of other evidence, DNA, or vital fluid made it seem like foul play wasn't involved, though it hasn't been ruled out as a possibility. Many residents of Alaska who are aware of the legend believe that something supernatural is at play here. No further information has been added to the case, and Frank Manano remains missing. Any tips regarding this missing person can be directed to the Alaska State Troopers at 907-269-5511. Number 2. As intriguing as supernatural forces in the unwelcoming, frosty landscape are, some disappearances are far more mundane than that. Alaska is known for its crime rate, which is significantly higher than most other US states. Dominating those crimes are violent, brutal assaults and homicides. Investigations into the state and its police department have found something truly disturbing. Criminals who were once convicted of domestic violence or theft were found to be working as police officers in Alaska. The narrative that you may be the victim of a department that's meant to protect you is just one of the problems contributing to the stress that comes with living in Alaska. Born as Joshua Mark Kronbach and formerly known as Mr. Alaska, Tony McCronos decided to legally change his name. Tony grew up in Eagle River, Alaska, 20 miles north of Anchorage. He lived in the 1600 block of Eleonora Street and was working as a longshoreman. Realizing that he needed a change from this unforgiving environment, he decided to purchase land in Hawaii at the start of this year, hoping to move there and settle down. But Tony would never get the opportunity to see his new place, because come the 6th of March, he would disappear. The 40-year-old was last seen on that day, enigmatically vanishing forever. According to the family, he was in a good place and had absolutely no reason to go missing, and he certainly wouldn't have done so without warning. A neighbor had noticed the lack of activity at the house and decided to make contact with Tony's father, as he was concerned. So the Kronbachs headed over to Eagle River to check up on him, and there they were met with a distressing scene that suggested an unnerving event that would lead to his disappearance. The back door had been kicked in, but this was no robbery. Tony's belongings, including his wallet, phone, keys, and 2 cars were all there. Whatever happened here was a lot more personal. When the family couldn't find Tony, they headed to the Anchorage Police Department to report him missing. But something truly strange would come up here too. It turned out that one of Tony's neighbors was a man named Christopher Sternhagen, a police officer with APD. Property records confirmed that Sternhagen lived in a duplex behind Tony, which was extensively searched by not only the Anchorage Police Department, but also by the FBI. The property was searched for a concerning 3 days in April, but police refused to state why they were searching the officer's home in particular, or if they found anything. They also declined to comment on an unexpected connection between Tony and Sternhagen. The only claim they made was that they were working different angles to collect every piece of information. Since the disappearance, Tony's immediate circle, family, and friends haven't stopped their pursuit for answers. The APD was investigating one of their own, and the community wanted to know why. Information about this missing person can be directed to the Tony Kronos tip line at 907-786-8999. Alternatively, you can contact the FBI Anchorage Field Office at 907-276-4441. Number 1. What happened to Robert Lee Horahan? This is the question that many have been asking since 2011. It was the 8th of April when Rob told his wife Tara to have a good day before he left for work. Everything was going as routinely as expected. The 33-year-old would leave his Fluvanna County, Virginia home every morning at 6:30 to head off on his 45-mile commute to his job in Richmond, where he worked as an electrician. His route there would consist of him taking Interstate 64, which takes him right into the city. On this out-of-the-ordinary morning, though, for for reasons unknown, Rob decided to switch up his routine. 2 hours later, Tara's coworker would phone her and claim to have seen her husband driving in the complete opposite direction. While it may initially be assumed that she was mistaken, the coworker pointed to the unique license plate on the white Chevy Cavalier, which read Tara May. It was heading north on SR 53, completely out of the way. Of course, Tara was immediately concerned and phoned her husband numerous times. Each time, though, it went to voicemail. Trying not to panic, she'd wait a few more hours for him to return her call, but that anticipated ring never arrived. It was out of character that Rob had alerted his wife to a change of schedule, but the most bizarre part of the case was yet to be realized. When Rob didn't return home and Tara reported him missing, the authorities would begin investigating. One of the first things they did was contact Rob's workplace, and it turned out that he wasn't even scheduled to work that day, yet he left home in full uniform. Through further efforts, police discovered a strange timeline of Rob's movements and discovered that instead of going to work that morning, he'd headed to the E.W. Thomas grocery store in Palmyra. He was spotted driving northwest on Route 53 and arrived at the store around 8 a.m., where he would have breakfast. He'd worked at the store on a job before and was well known there. According to witnesses, Rob was planning to meet a friend there, specified to be a male. But whoever he was intending to meet would never arrive there, and he soon finished his breakfast before leaving. That would be the last time that anyone would see or hear from Rob. A whole 50 days later, with no updates, no sightings, and no tips, the Cavalier belonging to the missing man was located. It was parked right at the edge of the parking lot of a Target store, 115 miles away in La Plata, Maryland. Inside the car were several personal belongings, including Rob's brown work shirt and several tools that were of great value. The scene revealed no evidence of a crime taking place there. By the time the authorities had discovered the vehicle, the security footage that would have captured its arrival had already been recorded over. All hopes of determining who was behind the wheel and if it was Rob were lost. Investigators became suspicious of the disappearance, but never revealed why they felt this way. They didn't reveal any of the information they'd received that would lead to this speculation. The investigators found that the missing man last used his cell phone on the morning of his strange disappearance, and he also left home without his crucial heart medication, and his case remains unsolved. Information regarding this missing person can be directed to the Flavanna County Sheriff's Office at 434-589-8211. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you liked this video, be sure to hit that like button. Also, don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell to keep up to date with all of our future uploads. But my name is Ty Knott, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.